Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Well done, Chris Ford, for sneaking past us all. Bit of a T-Rex reference there. Good morning, Metal Gurus. Yeah, Metal Guru, is it you? Good morning, Chris. How you doing, my friend? Good of you to be here. Dan Cullen was here early doors. No strange, no one early all week. And he is referring to the fact that no one has actually arrived here early. He was here at 9:49, but he is the first this morning. Who else do we have here? Now, I'm going to throw this open. We do have a proper question of the day, but our friend Dan has just put this up, and I've got a funny feeling he may be referring to where he is at the moment. Question of the day: have you ever been on a job where you feel you don't fit in and people don't talk to you? Yes. Yes, I have. When I get invited to press conferences and events, generally I'm with people that I've known for many years. Dan Jukes, ex of Construction News. Nick Johnson, formerly of Plant Hire Executive, and people like that. Graham Black from Earth Movers, Peter Halleck, obviously, Nick Drew, all these people. But occasionally I get invited to events that are in maybe the mining sector, where I don't know a soul. But they can be a bit clicky. I did a trip to Ireland about maybe 18 months ago to see Combi Lift, the lift truck people. Combi Lift themselves could not have been more hospitable, but the forklift truck people, not quite so welcoming. So yes, Dan, I do know exactly what you're saying. Gary Muirhead is here as well. Morning, Gary. Got a cracker of a question of the day from Gary today. Who else do we have here? Just rattling through. Mark Whiting is in our midst, as is Mr. Williamson, Steve Earth Moving. Morning all. It's Friday. Yeah, Friday. Can you believe Bauma is kind of a distant memory as well, isn't it? Let's have a look. Jim Turner. Morning all, he says. And Steve. So, in answer to Dan's question of the day, I wish I had that. I'm never left alone. Funny enough, I was talking about this. My obviously my wife lost her father a few weeks back, and her mum isn't exactly the easiest person to deal with at the best of times. And I was trying to make her feel good about it because I was telling her about my father. I went to see my dad after my mum had died. And I think I went down on a Monday, and on the Monday, I said, "How you doing, Dad?" And he went, "Oh," he said, since the funeral, I haven't heard from a soul. Nobody phones, nobody writes, nobody's been in touch at all." I went down there 2 days later. "How you doing, Dad?" "Fucking phone hasn't stopped ringing. Pete, I wish people would leave me alone." Yeah, that's the size of it. Chris Ford says, "Miss the days of PMJs and PHEs dropping through the letterbox." Yeah, you and me both. I'll let the cat out of the bag. This isn't confirmed, but I'm trying desperately hard to make this happen. So back around about 1988, thereabouts, there was a magazine called Plant Managers Journal. I was on a weekly magazine called Contract Journal, and we wrote about plant four or five pages a week from the plant desk. And then my publishing company actually bought Plant Managers Journal, which was a monthly magazine dedicated to all things plant management. They bought it from a publishing house. The then editor, Nick Johnson, went off to form Plant Hire Executive, and I was moved over from Contract Journal to Plant Managers Journal as the deputy editor. Lots of water gone under the bridge since then. But when I first arrived in the business, I attended a press conference once, and I was kind of taken to one side by a guy that was a good few years older than me, and he was pointing out people around the room, and he pointed at Nick Johnson, who was the former editor of Plant Managers Journal, who had now just started Plant Hire Executive, and he said to me, "That over there, that's Nick Johnson. Listen to what he says because he knows his stuff." I did. I've known Nick now for 35, 36 years. He's almost entirely retired at this point. But I've been doing this for 35, 36 years. By the time I arrived in this business, he was already a veteran of the industry. So I've reached out to him. I actually reached out to him about a week ago to suggest that me and him sit down and have a chat about, all our yesterdays, and because his memories of the industry will greatly outstrip mine. I think he started out with Langs, and then moved over into journalism. So he really does know his crap. And one of the things that I want to tell him, among many other things, he actually had a column. If you were readers of Plant Hire Executive, and I know a few of you were, you will remember there used to be a regular column, used to run to 2, 3, sometimes 4 pages, and it was called Nick Johnson at the Controls. He was 25, maybe 30 years too early, because it was basically somebody would launch a new machine, a mini excavator or a dumper or something like that, and Nick would basically go and drive it first. He would find one for hire, find one he could borrow, and take it off for a day or 2 days, drive it, and pull it to pieces, and be very honest about it, but real warts and all reporting. If he liked it, he said so. If he didn't like it, he said that as well. It would have been an absolutely fantastic YouTube channel. As I say, he was way, way ahead of his time. So keep an eye out for that. I'm hoping to get him on, not this show. I'll pre-record it and then we'll put it out as something to reminisce through. Dad says, feel out of place, no one talking to us. Feel these guys aren't team players. Some people are just clicky, aren't they? Ken Hatcher says, I remember those mags. Yeah, I've actually got, bear with me. There you are. That's my old magazine there. That was after I went away. Where was that? That was April 2007. By that time, I'd already been gone for about 7 years. I left in 1990 and then got a phone call to come back and basically put it back on track, which I did. And there is one of the issues that I did when I went back. Yeah. Yeah. Fun enough, talking about, I don't know if you can see that. You see that? Head to head? One of the things that I had in mind for the magazine when I went back was basically to do head-to-heads between different types of products. And in that one, we did a red rhino crusher against an MB crusher from Worsley Plant. And we filmed it, 2007, we filmed it. So very early doors of all things related to YouTube. Took it to the publishers and they said, video, the internet, that'll never catch on. Their magazine and most of the publishing company now gone. Now gone. Steve says, I enjoyed reading the magazine. Now it's all on social media about a month before it comes out in a magazine. Don't buy them anymore. It's old news. It is, unfortunately. Yeah, it is. And unfortunately, I think where the magazines, and it's not for me to criticize because they exist in a different sort of parallel universe to me. But when that became the case, you would have thought that they would have taken a slightly different direction, maybe greater depth. I know Awesome Earth Movers do a bit where they support some of their articles with video, and they do it very, very well. But if you are going to be 4 weeks behind, or 5 weeks, or 6 weeks behind the news on the introduction of a new machine, you would have thought that you would have really got down to the nuts and bolts, the nitty gritty, really got under its skin and shown the fact that you'd really done your research and give your readers more of a valuable resource rather than, listen, we all know how social media works. I'm on it. I know exactly how it works. Everything is instant gratification. Scroll, 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 scroll. If you want to stand out as a magazine, surely you're right. The best way to do that is to stop people. Go and sit on the toilet for 20 minutes and read this article where we will tell you everything about that. Going back to fitting in, Jim Turner says, I never try to fit in anywhere. Obviously, not everyone likes me, but I mostly end up in places where we have a mutual interest. So I end up having the crack with folk and end up knowing more like-minded people and opportunities. Yeah, I take your point. Some people do make that hard, though, don't they? Whatever happened to Don Baldry? Don Baldry, man alive, there's a blast from the past. He used to have a column in PHE called Travelling Man. Used to make a lot of sense. Yeah, I've not heard of or from Don Baldry in years. I know the last time I was up at JCB, I was actually sat next to, I had Tim Burnhope from JCB on one side, and I had Nick Johnson on the other side. And I was talking to Nick, and he was telling me that his old advertising manager, guy called David Holmes, probably the most Midlands accent I've ever heard. David Holmes had recently passed away. Now, that must be about a year ago. I don't know the situation with Don Baldry, but I've not heard that name in many, many years. Ken Hatcher. Wow, I remember reading them as my ex-boss used to have them all. Yeah. We always used to claim that actually with our magazines, that we would print however many. I mean, on Contract Journal, I think it was about 40,000 a week or something like that. We'd print 40,000, but we claimed a readership of something like 100,000 because everybody would sort of pass them on down the line, and by the time some people got them, pages had been torn out and stuff like that. Dan Cullen says, like the cap. Yeah, this is a Mine Expo hat. I think I can't actually remember what the brand is. Pressure Pro. I've no idea what Pressure Pro are. And Jonathan Duras is here as well. Good morning, Jonathan. How are you doing, my friend? Glad you could join us. Should we make a start? Now we've done all our yesterdays. I'm going to make a start. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road as soon as I can remember which button does that. It's this one. I'll get to all of that in just a moment, but Gary Muirhead says, is Construction News still going? It is. I don't know if they're still publishing a magazine, but it's very much online. But unfortunately, Construction News is another of those that puts pretty much everything behind a paid firewall. Now, listen, I'll put my hand up. If I'm doing stuff that I want to limit the circulation, I still put stuff behind a paywall, be it on buymeacoffee.com or over on Substack. I'm more than happy to do that. But doing it with everything, I think, is pushing your luck slightly, particularly as, a lot of the information that's out there, we were talking about this just a moment ago. If JC Boone launch a machine, I get to hear about it. Nick Johnson gets to hear about it. Nick Drew gets to hear about it. Graham Black gets to hear about it. Construction News gets to hear about it. Why put that behind a paid firewall? Doesn't make an ounce of sense to me. Jackass Journal was a regular read. Yeah, Jackass Journal was, as you know, Construction News. That was the one that we were competing against. When I joined Contract Journal, we were lagging a long way behind. We produced fewer pages. Our circulation was smaller. They were beating us in pretty much every single aspect that you could beat us in. But we had a new editor come in, a guy called Andy Pring, who actually gave me my first job in Contract Journal. And at the same time, we were joined by a couple of guys. There was a guy called Roger Adshead, who was the advertising manager, and his sidekick, Mark Bresnahan. And in the space of about a year, we caught and overtook Construction News. Contract Journal became number one, purely because of those three guys. The rest of us were just kind of dragged along in their wake, but there you are. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Nothing there. Right, okay. It is Thursday, the 24th of April. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. In today's show, Magni unveils a new pair of telescopic handlers. We've got the latest from Leica. We're in the swim for some Dutch swimming pool demolition. And in the latest installment of the Breakfast Show at Bauma, we're sitting down with Develon's demolition specialist, Jan Breburda. Smashing. Sometimes you meet people and you kind of misjudge them. Okay, so Jan Breburda, I'd never met him before. Bauma, I reckon he stands about 6'4", 6'5". Big old fella. He's Czech. He's got hair, but he's got it braided, so he's got a ponytail down his back. Let me get Chris out of the way so you can see the side. He's got a ponytail like that, a plaited ponytail. Looks like a biker. And I introduced myself. Jan, I'm Mark Anthony. He went, "Hi, Mark. Pleased to meet you." Really quietly spoken, but a really nice fella. We'll be talking about that later. Jim Turner says, "Remember looking at the old fella's Construction News when I was a nipper before I could read. That's the way to learn the industry, isn't it?" I'll come back to the question of the day in a moment, but we do have Mystery Machine time after this. Yeah, this month is going right down to the wire with the Mystery Machine. I can tell you, Dan Cullen has won 4. I've won 3. Steve Williamson has won 2. Who else? Chris Ford's won 1. Jim Turner's won 1. It's all up for grabs. So we've got one for you today, and it looks like that. I need from you, as always, a make and a model, and I will tell you now, I've done nothing. I've done the color you're looking at right there. That is as it rolled off the production line somewhere in the world. I'm looking for a make and a model. What have you got for me? Let me take that away because I do need to. I'll tell you what, let me do this bit on first, very, very quickly. Jonathan Dura says, call me a sado, but I've got all the Earth Movers magazines and one classic plant to get, and I'll have all of them too. No, I think that's a good thing. Back when I very first started with Contract Journal, you could actually buy. Christ, I've not thought of this in 36, 37 years, probably. You could actually buy a Contract Journal binder. Okay, so when I first joined a Contract Journal, let me get Jonathan out of the way. Contract Journal used to be a what do they call it? Sort of tabloid size. So the size of the Sun or the Daily Star. It's a big old sucker. And you could buy a ring binder, so you could punch holes in your Contract Journal and you could keep them as a reference work. Couple of years later, we decided, for reasons I never fully understood, to shrink the magazine down. Made it thicker, but also made it narrower and shorter. And I think they did away with those at the time. I have to say that's one of the advantages of doing online type stuff is it's automatically referenced. But imagine having 50 issues per year of Contract Journal, and you think, where did I see news of that new backhoe loader? What a pain in the ass that would have been. Right. Okay. So very, very quickly, let's have a look. Steve reckons that we could be looking at a Komatsu Dozer, a D85. It's not. Dan Cullen is going for the John Deere 650P. It's not. Chris Ford going for the Komatsu D61PX-24. It is not. Dan Cullen going for the John Deere 700L. It is not. Jim Turner going for the Lewis Badger. It is none of those things. Let me show you a bit more, and then I'll remind you of the question of the day, and we will actually get to some of your answers. There you are. There's a smidgen more. As I say, not played with the colour at all today. That is as nature intended. I'll get that out of the way and press this button right here. Yeah, our question of the day today comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And his question is this: what would be your death row meal? Imagine, if you will, you find yourself on death row for some heinous crime against humanity, operating with your sprockets misaligned, Ken, perhaps. And you're given the choice of your last meal. What do you go for? Now, I'm tempted to say pie and mash from Manzi's in Towerbridge Road, partly because I love it, but also because I think it would take quite a long while to organise. See, on the basis we don't have death row here, I'm assuming that we're on death row somewhere in America. I think it would take quite a long while for the Americans to rustle up pie and mash from Towerbridge Road in London. Failing that, if they decided, no, that sounds like a lot of hard work for a guy that's not going to be around for much longer, I'm going to go for a whole crab. A whole crab with about a gallon of melted butter on the side for dipping purposes. Let's be absolutely honest, if I'm about to be executed, my cholesterol levels are no longer of concern. And then finish things off, rhubarb crumble and custard is what I'm going for. Any offers on any of that? What do we got? I know we had where are we? I'm sure we had. Dan Cullen says, mine would be eat as much as possible, anything goes. Yeah, because you could do that, couldn't you? Steve Williamson says, starter. Jesus Christ. Starter. 20 hot wings with Frank's hot sauce and blue cheese dip. Main. The biggest fillet steak I could get with a lobster on top. Home cooked chips cooked in duck fat and a selection of sauces. No veg. Pudding. Key lime pie with honeycomb ice cream. You've thought about this before, Steve, haven't you? That's all come very, very readily to mind. And how many of you have met Steve? I'm sure a few of you have seen him at shows and stuff. We're talking about kind of a bit of a whippet of a guy. He's probably about my height, I guess. You know, the wrong side of 6 foot. He's a little bit smaller than that. He probably weighs about 10 stone soaking wet, and yet he is going to take down a mountain of food. Don't blame him, but yeah, where do you put it all? Jonathan Dura says it would have to be a full roast dinner. That would be the last thing on my suggestion list. Can't be doing with roast dinners. I just lost on me. Really lost on me. Jim Turner, well played. Your death row meal, he is going for a big bowl of soup and a toothpick to eat it with. Well done, sir. Um, Chris Full rather says that last meal sounds like forward planning. It certainly does. Let me go back to the mystery machine because we've had another guess here. What have we got? We've got Dan Cullen going for Shantway DH36M. It is not one of those. It's also not a Komatsu D51 EXI. Steve Williamson saying I was in heaven in Vegas. Yeah, I bet you were. That I tell me to shut up if I've told you this story before. I went to Vegas many years ago. One of the first, I think it was probably the first Mine Expo I ever went to. Went out for dinner one evening and ate like an absolute pig. It was just large portions, like lots of steak and so really got stuck in. Following day, I woke up and was so full up. I thought, no, I literally cannot do breakfast. And it got to about 1 o'clock, and I was thinking, well, it's lunchtime, but I'm still full up. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was thinking, well, I need to eat something because I'm on my feet all day. I'll better go and grab something to eat. So I went off to find myself a sandwich, and I ordered a turkey sandwich. I thought that'd be fairly light. 2 slices of bread, and the turkey was stood about that high. Welcome to Las Vegas. That's the way they do things. What have we got? We've got another guess here from Dan the Man, an LD20D from Lugong. It is not one of those. It's also not a JCB 9-ton site dumper. Let me show you a bit more. There you are. That looks a little bit bladey to me. I'm saying it looks a little bit bladey. I know what this is. I don't know why I'm making this up. Keep the guesses coming in. Because it is time to get the show on the road properly. I'm going to be right back with a couple of new machines from Magni. Yeah, I do feel slightly guilty about Magni. I ended up spending so much time looking at telehandlers on the Manitou stand, I never made it to Magni, but apparently they had a couple of new products on display. I'm pleased to bring them to you right now. We have a winner on our mystery machine, and I can tell you it is yet again Mr. Cullen has got the right answer. There is what we were looking at. We did have this from Jim Turner, who reckons it could be a Michigan wheel dozer. It is not one of those. It is, in fact, one of those. It is an XCMG D260 dozer. And just to prove it, let me rattle through. There we are. XCMG D260, Mr. Cullen, another 3 points in the can. Congratulations, sir. Yeah, well, I mean, if you win another prize, the bag that I'm bringing to see you on Saturday week might be a bit bigger. We shall see. We shall see. That's assuming you're still available, obviously. I'm going to be back in just a moment with the latest from Leica.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, this is the bit of the industry that kind of exists over to one side. Steve, I know you understand all this sort of stuff. I'm sure others do as well. This is the very latest from the fine folks at Leica.
At Leica Geosystems, we strive to develop solutions that empower our customers with the freedom to choose options that fit their needs. This is why we have developed scalable software options for Leica Icon Field, including subscriptions. Enjoy the power of choice with the value, performance, and ultimate feature packages, each crafted to suit your unique workflow needs. This will allow for lower initial costs, optimized return of investment, and the option to upgrade to applications and features as your business needs evolve. The value level is perfect for construction professionals who perform simple measuring and positioning tasks with tools like Measure, Stakeout, Cut and Fill, and Draw. The features available in this level are the essential ones for executing daily tasks precisely and efficiently. An upgrade to performance will unlock advanced functionality for more demanding jobs, such as quick codes, auto snap, automatic logging, and contour lines. This level also includes enhanced viewing options like perspective view and limit box. Moreover, the performance subscription provides access to the slopes, surfaces, and volumes, and cut and fill applications. You can use the slopes application to easily find and mark the slope area for the excavation works and ensure an efficient earth-moving job. The surfaces and volumes application offers neat tools for accurate volume calculation. The cut and fill application optimizes material movement as well as monitors the ongoing progress of your earthworks. The Foreman solution, which is also included in the performance subscription, gives you instant real-time work progress updates and helps you easily plan your next steps. Our masterpiece, the Leica Icon Sight Ultimate, is, as the name indicates, the ultimate tool for a variety of tasks. It includes all applications and features available in the value and performance subscriptions, plus the complete roading app. The roading app allows accurate stakeout of road designs with millimeter accuracy, utilizing the detailed road design from a string line model. Moreover, it offers a convenient cross-section view for better visibility and orientation. While you can upgrade from one level to the next, you also have the flexibility to add extensions and features at each level. The Icon Sight Excavator, the milling app, smart coding, and Icon Sight Plus are just a few of them. Choose scalability, enjoy flexibility, and invest only on what you need with the Leica Icon Construction Solutions.
There you are, latest from Leica. Back on that question of the day, what would be your death row meal? And Gary, I think yours would be in complete alignment with my son Fred. A pastrami on rye from Cat's Deli in New York. Fred's girlfriend back in the day was American. Her family from New Jersey, but he went over to New York, New Jersey for about a fortnight some years ago, and he went to Cat's Deli. I realised it's a bit of a touristy destination. He came back raving about pastrami on rye and the Reuben sandwich and everything else. And I said to him, seriously, is it the best sandwich you've ever eaten? And he said it was the best thing I've ever eaten. Absolutely loved it. Steve says 7 machines on site here, not one here without GPS. Less men and more production. The less men, more production it doesn't sit well with me, but that is the way of the future. Dramana Equipment has just joined us over on Instagram. Lots of other people there as well. Hamid is there. Demolition, Construction, and Tom. Yeah, loads of people over there. Good morning to Instagram. Thank you very much indeed for being here. There was a late guess on our mystery machine, which was a Shantway DH10 from Steve, but it is not. It is an XCMG D260. Just to prove it, there it is in all its glory. Now, we're off to Holland in just a moment. For those of you that don't like swimming, you might enjoy this bit coming up.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, we're off to see a bit of a swimming pool demolition right now, courtesy of our friends over in the Netherlands, round about Eindhoven way. Spent a lot of time in Eindhoven. Here we go. I don't remember that ending quite so suddenly, but there you are. That's all the way from Holland, demolition of a swimming pool. We've got one more film to show you, which is about the new Develon. It only occurred to me last night when I was actually putting this one together. Develon, as you're about to see, have got a new. It's a high reach. It goes up to about 2 to 3 stories, but a kind of a mini high reach. You might remember that yesterday when we showed you around the case stand, they had something very similar. Is that a new trend in the demolition field? Mini high reaches. Can you still call it a high reach if it's quite mini? I don't entirely know, but we'll be back with that in just a moment after this. I'm going to go over to here, says Jim Turner. Everyone bangs the drum about electric being the future for the environment, but GPS is just as important, he says. Efficiency of machines saves on pollution much more. Less people needed, less trips to work, more work per energy unit used, and by the end of that machine's life, it has been so much more productive. It's a good point. Is anybody else playing that up, the environmental benefits of GPS? I realise we talk about precision. What is it? Measure once, cut twice. Measure twice, cut once. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore because it's taken care of. Yeah, good call. Chris Field says, last time I answered this, it was an everlasting gobstopper. There again, a full hog roast would take some eating on my own. I reckon you've got that. I reckon you've got that in your bag, Chris. No trouble at all. Steve saying, well said, Jim. Yeah, are the GPS manufacturers and suppliers and developers, are they talking about the environmental benefits? I know we talk about a lot about precision and that kind of thing. Are they talking about sustainability? I've not heard them, but maybe I wasn't listening closely enough. Anyway, before I play you the final film, I do want to say a very quick thank you to a guy called Mike Isherwood, who does the PR for both Bobcat and for Develon. Obviously, the two are related, but he does the PR for both. I called Mike in advance of Bauma and said I'd love to meet up with a Develon demolition specialist. He said, yeah, we can make that happen. And he did. One thing I will say about this is we sat down on the Develon stand, and I positioned Jan, who you're about to meet, and I put him in front of a door thinking that won't be busy. Turns out I was wrong, but ignore the people in the background and just listen to Jan and enjoy the new Develon high reach machine. Here we go.
Well, today our range consists of 4 machines. Starting, let's go from top, which is the more, I would say, populated category for the demolition. We have DX530 DM-7, which is in the demolition version around 70-ton model, 31 meter reach. Then, one step down, we have 380 machine with like 23 meters in height. Then DX245, so far our best seller. This is a machine that is around 30 tons, but actually it has narrow undercarriage under 2.5 meters or 2.54 meters. So this is machine that is extremely easy to transport. So it has been very popular on markets with strict regulation for road transport, meaning for this one it's much easier within standard transport without any special permits, or the permits are easy to obtain. What we present here at Bauma is 140 DX140 RDM-7. This is our latest model, which was introduced last year, and this model is based on a 15-ton excavator with a reduced tail swing. The concept of this machine is made for urban demolition. It is made actually to fit smaller places, but to still give like a full performance, let's say. We have 2 versions of boom, both with 16 meter pin height. As the machine is quite small, the transportation length is with the boom around 10.5 meters. As you have a standard option to get a monolithic boom without the possibility to change for the digging boom alarm. If you use this machine just for this one purpose, which is high reach demolition, then you can opt for interchangeable boom, which we have here on display, and this is then the standard solution from the larger excavators, allowing you to dismount the boom, mount another one, either the digging, or we also have a long reach arm for this version. Overall, this machine seems to be kind of stealing the show here, because we have a lot of interest, already some orders signed during the show, which is also I think the great thing, best thing that can actually happen on the show. And yeah, we are having even in this small machine, the demolition features are the same. Extendable undercarriage, of course, for better stability. Also, the tracks are a little longer compared to the standard machine, so the stability is not compromised in any way. We have an anti-tipping system, which is of course necessary. Ours stop the machine when you reach the point where it would threaten to fall over. On the 16 meter spin height, the maximal tool weight is, for the interchangeable version, 1,250 kilos, and for the monolithic version is 200 kilos more. So this pretty much defines the size of the tool that you can use with this machine. And on this stand we are showing the machine with a pulverizer, which is around 1,200 kilos. So it's like usual, showing pretty much the full potential of the machine, what you can use on it.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Jan. Going over to Gary Muirhead, who says it looks like a Marco Lorini conversation. Is that conversation or is that a conversion? I'm going conversion. Jonathan Dura says, I believe these compact machines are becoming more popular due to more compact, hard access sites. I would say they'd come into their own for that reason. I agree. And I've always been of the belief that a lot of these very, very big high reaches, when you get above 50, 55, 60 meters, They are a bit of an ego trip. It's great if you've got some long-term work, or you've got one exceptionally large project that's going to require you to go to 55, 60, 65, possibly even 70 meters. But the number of times I visit a demolition company and their big high reach boom is basically sat in the yard collecting cobwebs. I do remember going past the old Scuddy yard over near Wembley Way, on the way to the football stadium. I don't reckon their high reach boom turned a wheel in years. I mean, literally years. Every time you went past, it was parked in exactly the same place. So yeah, I do wonder about this sort of growing trend. There's a couple actually. Obviously, we've now got Caterpillar, Volvo, Cabelco have all gone down the straight boom line. When I was speaking to Jan, I asked him about that, and he said that was something that Develon were very keen to look at as well. But then we've also got these. I think we need a new name for it. Is it compact high reaches? I don't know, but the little case that we showed you yesterday, the one that we've just shown you there, absolutely superb stuff. Peter McKenna says, "Good morning, mentor." Yes, I know what you're talking about, Peter. Keep up the good work, my friend. If you're not following Peter, go and have a look at what he's up to over on Instagram. Not Instagram, on LinkedIn rather. He's doing some damn fine work. Congratulations to you, sir. Take the cab to the work height, then you'll see proper efficient working. Yeah, well, Sennabogen, and I'm talking about Sennabogen. I'm talking to them at the moment about something completely different. Straight boom seems to be more common now. Yeah, I remember when I first saw I literally saw my first straight boom machine over in Japan. When I went over to Japan in 2019 to see the Cat 340 straight boom. They've now added the 352, but since then we've seen Volvo join the fray, Cabelco have joined the fray, and as I say, Develon have said that they are looking at it very, very hard as well. So maybe that is a trend to come. Anyway, that's about it for the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. However, if you can find the time and the inclination, I'm going to be back and I'm going to be talking about leadership. Yes, there are some thinly veiled jabs at the orange fella in the White House. I'll leave you to decide where you stand on all that. But I would suggest, when you listen to it, I'm sure it will become clear to you. I would suggest we do have some leaders amongst our audience. What Peter McKenna is doing, the things that Jim Turner is doing, the things that Steve Williamson are doing. I'm just picking them off the top of me. You know, I would honestly say keep an eye on, because that is leadership in the truest sense. Dan says straight boom is a great piece of kit to operate. I'm sure it is. Crazy edits. Peter McKenna says egg mayonnaise and chicken tikka baton. That's your death row meal. Wow. Gary Muirhead clearing it up says yes. Sorry, conversion. I'm sure that was a machine that someone showed on YouTube at Bauma with a Larini plate on it. It may well be. May well be. And we've had that. I don't know what any of that means, but Deepak. So good they named him twice. Has just said that over on Facebook. I'm going to be back with the morning monologue after. You can always tell a real leader by where they stand when things go wrong. Not in the boardroom, not behind a podium, but right there, in the dust, the chaos, and sometimes the silence after things have gone sideways. That's the moment that separates those who wear the title from those who carry the weight. And let's be honest, the world isn't exactly bursting with leadership right now. In politics, charisma has replaced character, and polls matter more than principles. You don't see it in the headlines where it's all about optics, angles, and algorithms. But the real tragedy is this: you don't see it where it's needed most, right here in this industry. And leadership isn't actually complicated. It's not academic. It's not something you learn in a course titled Strategic Influence Dynamics or Transformational Management Frameworks. Leadership is simple. It's showing up. It's doing the hard yards first. It's setting the tone with your actions long before you even open your mouth. It's walking onto a site and getting your boots dirty, not just shaking hands and posing for a newsletter photograph. In this industry, people don't follow a title. They follow trust. They follow proof. You can't bluff your way through in demolition and construction. Workers will spot a fake a mile off. And that's what makes this industry such a crucible for true leadership. It exposes weakness and ego and entitlement quicker than any management seminar ever could. Now, the best leaders I've known didn't wear tailored suits or spout mission statements. They were the ones who they were the ones who stayed late to help fix a broken breaker. The ones who checked on the youngest guy on site just to ask, "You all right, mate?" The ones who took the fall for the mistakes they didn't make. Because that's what leadership is. Taking the blame, sharing the credit, and never ever looking down on your team. Real leaders are often forged in adversity. That's the birthplace of grit, of loyalty, and of instinct. When it all hits the fan, when the weather's turned, the job's behind, and the client's on your back, that's when a true leader either emerges or evaporates. And right now, especially in demolition construction, we don't need more decision makers. We need people who have been through the worst and have still come out swinging. The problem is, we've allowed leadership to become a game of politics, of fast track promotions and empty qualifications. We've put more value on who you know rather than what you've endured. And as a result, we've got people managing projects who have never been part of a team that struggled, who've never had to rebuild morale from the bottom up, who've never had to make a hard call with everything on the line. And that is one of the many reasons that crews don't trust those at the top. That's why morale slips. That's why burnout and resentment spread like mold. Because no one wants to follow someone who hasn't bled with them. Now step back for a second. Zoom out. Look at the political world. Can you name a leader, just one, who stands up and says the hard thing because it's right, not because it's popular? Can you name one who listens more than they talk? Who leads without needing to dominate the headlines? It's a wasteland up there, populated by people who mistake being loud for being brave. And that same disease has trickled down into our industry. We're told to accept the new generation of leaders that doesn't have to prove themselves, that their digital skills, their networking, their LinkedIn posts are the future. Well, let me tell you something. You can't network your way through a structural collapse. You can't post your way out of a safety breach. You lead with your presence, your values, your scars. You know where you do still see real leadership? On the pitch in football. Not always in the captain's armband, but in the players who rally when their team is 2-0 down and the crowd's gone quiet. In the ones who chase a hopeless ball in the 89th minute just to keep the fire alive. The leader in football isn't always the star, but he's the heartbeat, the one whose effort sets the standard, the one who demands more, not through shouting, but through doing. In demolition, as in football, you need strikers, people who get results. But without a leader in the middle of the field holding it all together, pushing people on, calling out nonsense, calming things down, you're going nowhere. Every site, every crew, every job needs that person. And frankly, we're not producing enough of them. We're not cultivating them because we've confused leadership with authority. And there's a world of difference. Authority is given, but leadership is earned. It's sweat equity. It's quiet consistency. It's showing people how to behave without ever having to say a word. We need to stop waiting for the perfect leader to show up in a suit or a slogan. The best leaders are already among us, just overlooked. They're on the tools. They're in the welfare unit at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for another punishing day. They're tired. They're fed up, but they're still there, still showing up, still looking after the ones around them. We need to find these people, listen to them, learn from them, and maybe, just maybe, put them in charge. Because if we keep mistaking volume for vision and charisma for character, then we'll keep losing the soul of this industry and of society at large. So here's my call for what it's worth. If you're someone who leads by example, who steps forward in adversity, who understands the power of effort over ego, stand tall. We need you. This industry needs you. The world needs you. Not tomorrow, not someday, but right now. Had an itchy nose right the way through that. But like the leader I am, I soldiered on. I didn't preempt that, but yeah, you are. Gary Muirhead says, I see the candle is in the background. It's a new candle, actually. My my eldest son came round the other night and he said, are you burning incense in there? And I said, I am not. I did have a candle on earlier in the day. This is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I walked away and left it burning. Thankfully, it's all safe. It smells lovely, but there you are. Steve Williamson says, I can't stand fake bullshit. Be real and honest is the best thing. Say how it is. You can't be everyone's friend being a leader. Some will listen, some will not. You have to make a decision if they're not worth it or not. Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember any of your teachers? Did any of your teachers say the phrase, don't do as I do as I say? That is not leadership. You set an example by your actions and your deeds, not by your words. The industry, and I'll take a step back from all that I've just said. The industry does have a few leaders. I find myself naming these 3 guys quite regularly. The incumbent president of the Institute of Demolition Engineers, Adrian McLean, leads by example. John Woodward leads by example. Terry Quarmby leads by example. And I'm sure there are others. I'm sure you've all encountered them on site. But we don't have enough. And I was thinking about this, and I mean, I made the exception with football, but even then, I spend most of my time watching West Ham. We don't really have that. We have a captain, but do we have a leader? Not at the moment. We did. We had a guy called Mark Noble, who, frankly, would have run into machine gun fire to protect the West Ham badge. He's no longer playing. He's still at the club, but he's no longer playing. And he set the tone. He absolutely set the tone. But look at it from a political standpoint. Do we have anyone? And I listen, I realise I may well be in the minority here. I think Donald Trump is an absolute tit. I'd quite happily put Nigel Farage on a boat and put it out in the ocean and sink it. But do we have anyone? Is there a political leader that you look up to and think, well, actually, that guy's making a lot of sense? Even religious leaders. I'm not a religious person myself, as you well know. I by all accounts, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but by all accounts, Pope Francis, who died earlier this week, was very much an admirable pope. Said lots of nice things about migrants, and wasn't particularly big on Donald Trump and his actions and stuff. But literally, who do you look to for leadership these days? Either in this industry or wider? I actually don't know the answer to that. Steve says, everyone wants to hear all positive. You're a leader. It's impossible to butter up everyone all the time. Yeah. I think that's one of the issues. And my mind has gone immediately to things financial on this. But there's a good example. Involve people. Keep them abreast of things. Rather than telling them, be here, do this, and that's it. Involve them. This is why we're doing it. This is why we're doing it in this sequence. And even things like I've just said, financial. If a company is struggling, let the people know. If you handle it right, you might actually get a little bit more effort out of them. It might actually stave off an impending disaster financially. It might not, but it might. Rather than keeping it all to yourself and keeping them in the dark, and then at the last minute, sorry, you're all being let go, but I'm okay because I've got a promotion, a la David Brent. Jim Turner says, I'm no leader. I spout my views and opinions on what I think is right or wrong. Could never be right in everyone's eyes, but even if everyone thinks I'm wrong, I'll always stick to my word and back myself. I've what I think are a few good ideas. I just need time and money and backing to try and prove it. But I do think there's a bit of a misnomer when it comes to leadership. I think we tend to think of leaders being above, on a podium or a pedestal. They're above. They maybe they earn more money. Maybe they've got a title that goes with it. Maybe they wear a different color hard hat or whatever it might be. I'm not absolutely convinced that's the case. And I think one of the areas where leadership really comes into play is where you what's the best way of you set the tone. So imagine, Jim, you've got a newbie on your site, somebody, you know, late teens, early 20s, and you're there early doors. You take care of your machine. You're doing your daily checks, and you're looking after the machine, but your work ethic is a form of leadership. You are setting an example, and even if you don't actually physically say to that young person, this is how you do this thing," the very fact that you do it day in, day out, and they are constantly exposed to the right way of doing things, to my mind, that is leadership. It's leadership in a very small way, but it's a leadership in a very meaningful way. I think that carries far more weight than somebody sending an email from head office saying, "On this site, we will do this at this time of day, and you will blow out the filters on your machine on once a week, and you will grease the machine on a daily," because nobody's going to listen to that. I think if everybody arrives for work at the same time, and one of you goes over to your machine and starts giving it the thorough once over before you start work, and they see you doing that, I think that rubs off. Um, if you want to be good leadership, it's still in part of the lads. Don't separate yourself from the workers. You'll end up with no one wanting to work with you. Yeah, yeah. It's one of the hardest, probably the hardest thing I ever did, because I went from being basically, I went from being the reporter on a magazine to deputy editor, ultimately to editor. And when you become editor, you are basically telling other people what to do. And nobody's ever going to write in quite the same way as I am. Some might say that's a good thing. But you've got to maintain a relationship that allows you to say, "Well, I wouldn't have done it like that," or "Have you thought about doing it this way?" or whatever it might be. Because you want them to improve, because the magazine in my instance was my baby. The site or the project is your baby. You want them to improve. You want them to all be pulling in the same direction. But by the same token, you don't want to be that guy on site who's just constantly lambasting everybody for their lack of effort. So it's a fine balance, and I listen. I can F and Jeff with the best of them, and I do get angry about stuff, particularly when things aren't being done in the way I'd like them done. But leadership is about getting the best out of people. I'll go back to all things football related. West Ham back in the 90s, we bought a player called Paolo Di Canio, who was basically the ultimate example of the fiery Italian. The guy was a genius football player, but he was as mad as a box of frogs. Absolute lunatic. He'd already been banned for months because he'd pushed a referee over. The guy was a mercurial talent. And Harry Redknapp, our then manager, basically brought him in, and basically his style of management with Paolo Di Canio was to not manage him at all, not tell him what to do, not make him train. I mean, apparently, by all accounts, he trained harder and longer than anybody anyway, but not tell him what to do, but just to let him have his freedom of expression. Don't try and contain that genius in a box. And as a result, for 2 or 3 seasons, Paolo Di Canio absolutely thrived under Harry Redknapp. If he had tried to manage him, be here at this time, do this, don't do that, don't play in this position, play in that position, we would never have got the best out of him. But Harry Redknapp had the good sense to look at him and say, "Okay, what does this need?" Think about the people on your site. There are some that will need a kick up the arse. Unquestionably, that's the nature of the beast. But there are some that will need an arm around their shoulder. There are some that will just need a "cheers, pal," or a "job well done," or a pat on the back after a job well done, or a bit of support from time to time, particularly younger guys. They'll need a bit of a leg up. Part of being a leader, in my opinion, is spotting those different needs, and then mending and bending your leadership skills to suit them. Arm around one, kick up the arse for another. That, to my mind, is what leadership is all about. And just going back to things demolition related, I mean, I do think John Woodward was a great leader at the IDE. I think Terry Cornby, because of his pursuit of all things academic, I think he's been very good. But I think Adrian McLean, because I think everybody pretty much admires Armac as a company, he already comes with a great deal of goodwill anyway. But he is not, I am the president and it will be my way or the highway, a la Donald Trump. He is basically opened things up. I mean, part of his opening speech when he became president was he is basically the custodian of your institute. It's not mine. You're not following my rules. It's yours. I'm just looking after it for a couple of years and then I'll pass it on to somebody else. That, to my mind, is a real leader. Anyway, people, that will pretty much do us. Excuse me. Candle smells nice, but it gives me terrible coughs. You can read all about that if you so desire. All of that has just been reproduced over on LinkedIn. It's actually available now, I think, if I'm not very much mistaken. It's also available on Substack as well. I'll be back on Monday for Get More of the Same. We've actually got a full week next week rather than the short 4-day week. So please, if you are around, let's have a look. Jim Turner just says, I suppose you're right, Mark. I get the young ones to do the daily checks. I kid it to save my old legs. Yeah, and that's part of leadership again. So when they're asked, when going for their tickets, they'll know the answers. Same as telling them what all the various parts are called. Yeah. What is? I am one of those people that learns better by being shown, not being told. If I had to tell you how to run a live stream, and I have done this, I could write it down. I could write you an instruction manual, which would probably run to about 40 or 50 pages, would be highly complicated, and by the end of page 2, you'd be thinking, I don't really want a live stream. This sounds like an awful lot of fucking hard work. However, if you were to sit beside of me, I could probably show you in about 10 minutes flat. There's the difference, and I think showing is one thing, or telling is one thing, showing is quite another. And I think that's exactly the point that Jim is making there. Get the young ones to do the daily checks. I kid it's to save my old legs. If that's what it takes to get them to do it, so that they become attuned to doing that, there's leadership right there. I could explain how to operate the machine with the tilt rotator and GPS. I'd have to show you. Yeah. Imagine having to sit down, even with the aid of ChatGPT. Imagine trying to sit down and explain to somebody how to operate an excavator. Monday's show is about going back to completely square one, starting with a blank sheet of paper. So imagine that. Imagine you take a person that has literally never, ever, ever seen an excavator before. Not even in a picture book. And you say, okay, well, get in the machine. This is how you operate it. From seatbelt, putting your levers down, checking your mirrors and all that, right the way through to actually, what joystick does what button does what bit on the screen. You would be there forever if you were to try and write that down. If, however, you could put them in a jockey seat and you could sit them behind you while you did it for 10 minutes, I reckon they'd pick it up. They'd pick it up pretty damn quick. Jim Turner says that's why I bang the drum for practical college of 16 to 18-year-olds. Help with them with maths and English in a practical way. Academic classrooms don't work for everyone. Totally agree. I'd love to get someone to show me GPS. Dan, you've been to Scotland. Go again. Just go a bit further north. Phone up Steve Williamson. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to show you the ways of the GPS warrior, for that is what he is. Anyway, people, that's enough of all this stuff and nonsense. I'm going to be I'm going to go and do something else. I will be back on Monday. Until then, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. All the best.